A wild boy wandered out of the woods completely feral. A man in Germany was found with documents from a country that didn't exist, and a soldier suddenly appeared in Mexico City after stepping off a palace in Manila. These are more mysterious people who claim to be from another world. Peter the Wild Boy showed up out of nowhere in 1725, wandering the woods near Hamelin, Germany. Nobody knew who his parents were, and he'd been living in the forest long enough they seemed almost totally feral. He walked on all fours, survived on plants. He couldn't speak a language, and later historians wondered if he had the rare Pitt-Hopkins syndrome. When a group of hunters found him, they brought him to the attention of George I, who sent him to Britain in 1726 under the care of Caroline, Princess of Wales. Caroline tried to teach Peter to read, write, and speak, but it didn't work. He stayed mostly mute. He did eventually pick up a few words, like his name and King George. Eventually, Peter was sent to work as a farmhand. Peter lived to around 70, eventually developing a taste for regular food. He could understand conversation and hum a few songs. He died in 1785 and was buried at St. Mary's Church and North Church, where you can still find his gravestone today. In 1851, authorities in Frankfurt, back when it was still part of Prussia, picked up a stranger who called himself Jophar Vorin. He was clearly disoriented. He understood German well enough to have a basic conversation, but his accent and the way he formed sentences, it made it obvious he didn't grow up speaking it. When they started asking him the usual questions, where he came from, where he was headed, his answers immediately threw them off. He said he came from a country called Luxaria. The officers checked every reference they had. It wasn't on any map. When they pressed him for proof, he pulled out actual documents, but the writing on them was completely foreign. It didn't match any known alphabet. He told them they were official papers from home. He also said he spoke multiple languages, German of course, but also his own language, which he called Luxarian, and another one named Abramian. Neither had any record of ever existing. Through all of this, he kept repeating that he was searching for his long-lost brother, with no way to verify anything he said. They eventually labeled him insane and sent him off to be examined, and that's the last anyone heard. The man seemingly just disappeared. In October 1593, the people of Mexico City started talking about a strange soldier who appeared out of nowhere in the center of town. Back then, the main square, the place where markets, ceremonies, and military drills happened, was called the Plaza Mayor. That's where guards found him, standing there in a uniform that nobody recognized, looking completely dazed. Supposedly, he'd been on duty in Manila just moments earlier, guarding the governor's palace. The soldier was exhausted, leaning against a wall, when he started getting dizzy. He closed his eyes for a second, and when he opened them up again, the palace was gone. The tropical air was gone as well. He was in the middle of Mexico City, thousands of miles across the Pacific. He insisted he was a palace guard from Manila, and even knew details about the governor's death, information nobody in Mexico had heard yet, because news traveled by ship and it took months. He was locked up and accused of being in league with the devil, but months later a ship arrived from the Philippines with news of the governor's death. One of the passengers said they'd seen the soldier in Manila right after it happened. He recognized the guy, and that was enough for them to let him go and send him back home. But how he somehow seemingly crossed the Pacific in seconds, nobody knows. In 1905, Paris police arrested a man for stealing a loaf of bread. But it didn't take long for things to get strange. The man didn't speak any language anyone could recognize. His words sounded a little like Esperanto, but the grammar was off, the rhythm was wrong, and after hours of trying, the police finally managed to ask him where he came from. He said Lizbia. At first they assumed he meant Lisbon, but he didn't understand Portuguese. When they showed him a map of Portugal, he just stared at it like it was utter nonsense. And that's when they realized he wasn't talking about a city, he meant a country, one that they couldn't find on any map. And after that, he disappeared from records. Nobody knows what became of him. There's no follow-up on whether he stayed in France or went somewhere else. In Japan, one of the oldest legends involving UFOs and interdimensional beings comes from Hitachi province. It's called Utsuro-Bune, which means hollow ship. The story goes that a strange ship made of metal and wood with crystal windows washed up along the coast. It was unlike anything anyone had seen before. There were strange symbols on the ship too that nobody could decipher, and inside the ship was a woman. She had pale skin, bright red hair with white extensions, and the moment she saw everyone gawking at her, she panicked. She started yelling things out, but nobody knew what language she was speaking. They did notice that she clutched a small, mysterious box. When the villagers looked inside her ship, all they found were 2 sheets, a tiny supply of water, and a strange food that seemed like a pastry made from bread and meat. Unsure what to do, they eventually put her back in the ship and set it out to sea. But this wasn't a one-time encounter. The same woman appeared along Japan's shores multiple times, and the writing on her ship showed up in several scrolls describing her. Nobody could read it. It's not from any known language. Was she an alien? Was she from some other dimension? Is this story just a mix of fiction and fact? Nobody really knows. On September 17th, 1975, 25-year-old Dannion Brinkley was at home in Aiken, South Carolina, on the phone with his friend Tom when lightning struck him. Over 180,000 volts shot through his body, throwing him across the room. He immediately saw himself from above, watching his wife Sandy and Tom trying to revive him. Dannion then experienced what he described as a near-death journey. He floated down a tunnel into a misty blue light, where he relived his life. But this time, he felt it from the perspective of everyone he'd ever hurt. As a child and young adult, he admits he was selfish, cruel, and a bit of a bully at times. During this experience, he felt all the pain and suffering he caused firsthand. Meanwhile, paramedics had rushed him to the hospital, where his heart stopped completely. He was pronounced dead. But after 20 long minutes, sheet over his head, fully assumed dead, Dannion woke up. He was in terrible condition. He couldn't walk or talk. He was partially paralyzed for months, but he was alive. It would take 2 years for him to fully get back to normal, able to walk and eat again. While he was clinically dead, though, he said he visited a cathedral-like place with 13 beings. Each showed him a box containing visions of the future. 113 events in total, including Ronald Reagan's election, the Soviet Union collapsing, and the Gulf War in 1991. In the years that followed, Brinkley dedicated his life to helping people, using the abilities from his near-death experience to help in police investigations and volunteering at hospices and nursing homes, helping people deal with life and death. Helena Blavatsky didn't technically say she was from another world, but she did claim to be in regular contact with beings from a hidden realm, and that idea ended up giving rise to an entire spiritual movement. In 1875, she co-founded the Theosophical Society in New York, saying she was learning directly from a group called the Mahatmas, or Masters of the Ancient Wisdom. She said they were higher forms of humans living in secret places around the world who protected ancient knowledge and communicated with her telepathically. She also said they delivered letters to her, and those letters, called the Mahatma Letters, became the foundation of her philosophy. Kind of this mix of Hinduism, Buddhism, and other vague, esoteric ideas. In 1954, a man showed up at Tokyo's Haneda Airport claiming to be from a country called Taured. He looked completely normal. He was well-dressed, polite, carrying a passport, but nothing about this man was truly normal. His passport was real, it was full of stamps from other countries, but nobody had ever heard of this Taured place. It wasn't on any map. It didn't exist anywhere, seemingly. But the man insisted that Taured was real. He pointed to it on his ID, and he said he'd been traveling to Japan regularly for work. It was kind of hard to dismiss outright because he spoke multiple languages, so he was obviously pretty learned and really had done a fair amount of traveling, but what the hell was this Taured thing about? Airport security put him in a hotel room overnight while they tried to figure out what was going on, but the next morning, he was gone. All his papers, wallet, and passport, they were gone too. It was like he'd never even been there. People who looked into this story often point to it being a time slip, an alternate reality case, or of course, a story with a completely logical explanation that morphed into this eerie urban legend over time. But it's without a doubt the most famous story of its kind, which is why I'm closing the video out with this one. With all that said, I've been your host, James, and I'll catch you, yes, you specifically, in the next video.